Your kitchen is leaking money, quietly, every single day. Not because food is expensive, because nobody taught you what to do with it once it came through the door. These 25 habits cost nothing to learn and nothing to apply. They will change how your kitchen runs from tonight. No equipment required, just attention. Let us count down all 25. Number 25. Keep a freezer list on the door. Before any other trick in this list works properly, this one has to be in place first. A piece of paper, a pen, taped to the freezer door. Every item that goes in gets written down. Every item that comes out gets crossed off. That is the complete system. It sounds too obvious to bother with, which is why almost nobody does it, and why the average British household has between 40 and 60 pounds worth of forgotten food sitting in the freezer at any given moment. 3 bags of mince bought because nobody checked. A portion of bolognese invisible behind the bag of peas. A chicken breast from 4 months ago that has become part of the architecture. The list costs nothing. It takes 30 seconds to update. Without it, every other freezer trick on this list eventually produces something that gets lost at the back and thrown away during the next big clear-out. Start here. Everything else builds on it. Number 24. Plan meals around leftovers first. Before you decide what to cook for dinner, open the fridge and look at what is already there, not what you fancy. What needs eating? The half block of cheese, the 3 roasted peppers from Tuesday, the cooked chicken thigh nobody finished. The meal you plan around those things costs almost nothing because the main ingredients are already paid for. The meal you plan without looking costs full price and creates more leftovers that will also need to be planned around tomorrow. Your grandmother did not sit down on a Sunday and plan the week from a blank page. She looked at what she had and worked forward from there. The leftovers were not the problem to manage at the end of the week. They were the starting point for the next meal. That inversion is the single most financially effective habit in this entire list, and it requires no equipment, no skill, and no extra time. Just the discipline to open the fridge before you open a recipe. Number 23. Keep cheese in paper, not plastic. The block of cheddar wrapped in cling film from last Monday is already suffering. The moisture trapped against the surface is creating exactly the warm, damp conditions that mold needs. The rind is going rubbery. The interior is starting to sweat. Wax paper or greaseproof paper allows the cheese to breathe. It maintains just enough moisture at the surface to stop the rind from cracking and drying out, while preventing the sealed conditions that accelerate decay. A good block of mature cheddar wrapped correctly on the cool shelf of the fridge lasts 3 to 4 weeks in perfect condition. The same block sealed in cling film gives you 10 days before it starts going wrong at the edges. The paper costs pennies for a roll that lasts months. The cheddar inside it lasts the full week every week without waste. Your grandmother kept her cheese wrapped in a damp cloth on the marble shelf of the larder. The paper is the modern version of the same principle. Air moves, moisture is managed, the cheese survives. Number 22. Use tinned foods as shortcuts. A tin of butter beans costs around 65 pence and takes 0 preparation. The same amount of dried beans requires overnight soaking, 40 minutes of boiling, and the advanced planning to have started yesterday. A tin of chopped tomatoes costs 55 pence and is already cooked down, consistent in quality regardless of the season, and ready to go into a sauce in 30 seconds. A tin of tuna costs around £1 and provides enough protein for 2 people with no chopping, no cooking, and no risk of anything going off in the fridge because you bought too much fresh fish on a Wednesday and could not use it all. Your grandmother's larder was stocked with tins specifically because they provided complete ingredients with no preparation and no spoilage risk. The modern version of that larder is a shelf of tins organized by type with the older ones at the front: beans, tomatoes, fish, sweet corn, coconut milk. When the fridge is bare and the energy to cook is low, the tin shelf is what stands between you and a takeaway. Number 21. Portion sauces into small tubs. A large batch of homemade tomato sauce costs around $2.50 in ingredients and produces 8 portions. A jar of dolmio costs $2.50 and makes 2. The arithmetic is not subtle, but it only works if the batch you make on Sunday is properly portioned and frozen, rather than sitting in one large container at the back of the fridge where it gets eaten twice and then forgotten. Ladle the sauce into small individual tubs or flat freezer bags. Label them with the contents and the date. Freeze flat. Each portion defrosts in the microwave in 4 minutes or in a pan in 10. Curry base, stew mix, white sauce, chili. All of it portioned small, frozen immediately, labeled clearly on the list on the door from number 25. A household that does this consistently spends significantly less on weeknight cooking because the expensive part, the time and the ingredient cost, has already been paid on Sunday. The tub in the freezer is a meal that is already half made. Number 20. Make soup from scraps. Keep a bag in the freezer and add to it every time you prepare vegetables. Onion skins, carrot tops, celery leaves, the woody end of a leek, the outer leaves of a cabbage too tough to eat, mushroom stems, potato peelings. After 2 or 3 weeks of normal cooking, the bag is full. Tip it into a large pot. Cover with cold water. Add a bay leaf, a few peppercorns, and a pinch of salt. Simmer for an hour. Strain. Cool. Freeze in portions. What you now have is a liter or more of genuine vegetable stock that cost nothing because it was made entirely from things that were heading for the bin. A carton of fresh vegetable stock from the supermarket costs around $1.80 for 500 milliliters. Your bag of scraps produces twice that volume for nothing and tastes considerably better because it is made from actual vegetables rather than salt, yeast extract, and natural flavoring. Professional kitchens do this as standard. They call it mise en place economics. Your grandmother called it not being wasteful. The words are different. The result is identical. Pattern break 1. Here is what your grandmother understood that the modern kitchen has largely forgotten. The kitchen was not a room you entered when you were hungry and left when you were finished. It was a system that ran continuously, where the end of one meal was the beginning of the next, and nothing that still had value left the kitchen in the bin. The scrap bag from number 20. The leftover gravy going into the freezer from number 15. The roast meat being stretched across 3 days from number 14. The stale bread becoming breadcrumbs from number 13. None of these are separate tricks. They are the same habit operating at different points in the same cycle. The modern kitchen treats every meal as a discrete event with its own fresh ingredients and its own fresh waste. Your grandmother treated the kitchen as a continuous system where waste from one meal became the resource for the next. That shift in framing from event to system is worth more than any single hack on this list. Number 19. Keep a leftover box in the fridge. One container, one shelf. Everything that is nearly finished goes in it. The 3 spoonfuls of rice, the half tin of beans, the last 2 roasted carrots, the slice of quiche nobody wanted at dinner. Every time the fridge is opened, that box is visible. Every time a meal needs a quick addition, that box is the first place to look. Without the box, those items disperse across multiple shelves, and the back of the fridge becomes a graveyard of small portions that each individually seem too insignificant to bother with until they have quietly gone off and have to be thrown away. With the box, they become visible, grouped, and impossible to ignore. A box of near-finished items pulled out at lunchtime becomes a meal without spending anything. Your grandmother had a cold larder where she could see everything at a glance. The leftover box is the modern equivalent in a fridge where visibility is otherwise the enemy of waste prevention. Number 18. Use a plate and board slicing trick. Place a handful of cherry tomatoes or grapes on a flat plate or the base of a container lid. Place a second plate or tray of identical size on top, pressing it down lightly so everything is held in place. Run a sharp knife horizontally between the 2 plates in a single long stroke. Every piece is halved simultaneously. What would have taken 2 minutes of individual slicing takes 4 seconds. This is not a novelty trick. It is geometry applied to a repetitive task. The same method works for olives, small mushrooms, and any small round food that rolls away from the knife the moment you try to cut it individually. Your grandmother did not have cherry tomatoes as a staple, but she applied the same instinct to gooseberries, currants, and small onions. Find the shortcut that the shape of the food allows. Use it every time. Number 17. Store herbs like flowers. A bunch of fresh parsley, coriander, or mint is a living thing when you buy it. The stems are still drawing moisture, the cells are intact, the flavor compounds are still active. Seal it in a plastic bag in the bottom of the fridge drawer, and you cut off its access to the moisture it needs to stay alive. Within 2 days, the leaves are yellowing and the stems are softening, and by day 4, it is going in the bin. Stand it in a glass of cold water instead, trimmed at the base exactly as you would trim a bunch of flowers. Cover the leaves loosely with a clean cloth or an upturned bag. Keep it on the cool side of the kitchen or on the fridge shelf with the glass standing upright. The same bunch lasts a full week longer. The cells stay hydrated, the color stays vivid, the flavor stays sharp. A bunch of fresh coriander costs around 60 pence. Used across a full week instead of 3 days, the cost per meal drops by more than half. Number 16. Cook extra rice for later. Rice cooked in the right quantity takes the same effort as rice cooked for one meal. The only variable is the amount of water and the size of the pot. Cook double what you need. Spread the extra on a tray to cool within an hour of cooking. Once cool, portion into flat freezer bags, press out every trace of air, and freeze immediately. Each flat pack defrosts in the microwave with a splash of water in 2 minutes and comes out perfectly separate and fluffy. Use it for fried rice on Tuesday, stirred into a soup on Wednesday, as the base of a quick lunch bowl on Thursday. A kilo bag of basmati costs around £1.75 and makes roughly 10 portions. Having 4 flat packs of cooked rice in the freezer means a proper meal is 15 minutes away on any weeknight without ordering anything, without planning anything, and without washing up more than 1 pan. Number 15. Freeze leftover gravy. Most Sunday roast gravy goes down the sink during the washing up because nobody made a deliberate decision to save it. It just gets tipped away while the attention is elsewhere. The deliberate decision takes 90 seconds. Ladle the leftover gravy into a silicone muffin tin or small freezer tubs. Freeze until solid. Pop the frozen portions into a labeled bag on the freezer list. Each one drops into a hot pan on a Wednesday and melts in 2 minutes into proper gravy made from real meat drippings and stock. A pot of Bisto Best costs around £2.50 and tastes of salt, caramel coloring, and compromise. Your frozen Sunday gravy costs nothing beyond the roast already paid for. It reappears over sausages and mash mid-week as though Sunday never ended. The quality is not comparable. One is the real thing. One is the packet pretending to be. Pattern break 2. Here is something supermarkets are very deliberately not telling you. Pre-chopped vegetables cost on average 3 times more per kilogram than whole ones. A whole butternut squash costs around £1. Pre-chopped butternut squash costs £3 for less actual product. You are paying for approximately 2 minutes of someone else's knife work, and you are getting a product that spoils faster because cutting exposes surface area to bacteria. The pre-washed salad bags generate carbon dioxide from the cut leaves, which accelerates decay unless you open the bag and transfer the leaves immediately. Mushrooms in plastic film sweat and go slimy 3 times faster than mushrooms stored in paper. Every piece of supermarket packaging that appears to be adding convenience is also, in almost every case, reducing the shelf life of what is inside it. Your grandmother bought whole vegetables, wrapped them herself in the correct materials, and kept them correctly. The system she operated in forced her to think about every ingredient from the moment it came through the door. The supermarket system is designed around the assumption that you will not. Number 14. Use leftover roast meat the next day. Sunday's roast chicken should never be one meal. Strip the remaining meat from the bone while it is still warm, because cold roast chicken is harder to carve cleanly. Portion it into a container and refrigerate. On Monday, it becomes the filling for a pie. On Tuesday, it goes into a broth with noodles and ginger. On Wednesday, the last of it gets fried with cold rice, a beaten egg, and soy sauce into something considerably better than anything delivered to the door. One chicken, at around 5 pounds, becomes 3 separate meals. The cost per serving drops below 2 pounds. The carcass goes into a pot with an onion and a carrot for stock, which goes into the freezer in portions. Your grandmother did not cook a joint and consider the meal finished when the plates were cleared. She considered it finished when the last trace of flavor had been extracted from the last bone. That discipline is still available to anyone with a pot, a freezer bag, and a pen. Number 13. Keep bread ends for crumbs. Every heel of bread, every crust the children refuse, every end slice that goes hard before anyone gets to it, none of it goes in the bin. It goes into a dedicated bag in the freezer. When the bag is full, spread the pieces on a tray and put them in a low oven for 30 minutes until completely dry and hard. Blitz in a processor or crush in the bag with a rolling pin. Return to the freezer in a clean labeled bag. Shake it once a week to keep the crumbs loose and separate. You now have a permanent supply of breadcrumbs that costs nothing because it comes from bread already paid for. A box of Paxo costs around £1.50. Your version costs nothing and tastes considerably better because it is made from actual bread rather than industrially processed grain flour. Use them for fish, chicken escalopes, crumble toppings, stuffing, macaroni cheese, gratin dishes. The bag replenishes itself automatically. The bin gets lighter every week. Grate butter instead of waiting for it to soften. A recipe calls for softened butter. The butter is in the fridge. The options are to leave it on the counter for 45 minutes, to microwave it for 10 seconds and risk melting the edges while the center stays solid, or to grate it. Take the cold block straight from the fridge and run it across the coarse side of a box grater. The resulting pile of thin frozen ribbons incorporates into flour in seconds, distributes evenly through a dough without warming it, and produces lighter, flakier pastry and scones than butter softened at room temperature because it never has the chance to melt before the heat of the oven does that work properly. Professional bakers pay for chilled mixing equipment to achieve what a cold block in a 3-pound grater does in 30 seconds. Your grandmother kept her butter in a cool larder and grated it because that was simply how butter behaved when properly stored. The technique survived because the physics never changed. Number 11. Peel vegetables with a Y peeler. A straight peeler requires the vegetable to be held at an awkward angle and pulled toward the body in a motion that takes roughly 3 strokes to clear one side of a carrot. A Y peeler sits across the thumb and index finger with the blade facing away and removes a wide ribbon of skin in a single downward stroke. It is faster, it takes thinner peels, which means less waste, and it works across the widest range of vegetables. Carrots, courgettes, potatoes, parsnips, butternut squash, cucumber, asparagus. For thin vegetables like courgettes and carrots, it can also be used to create long ribbons for salads and pasta dishes without any additional equipment. A Y peeler costs between 2 and 4 pounds and lasts for years. If it is the one tool in the kitchen that genuinely makes daily preparation faster and wastes less of every vegetable it touches, the return on that investment is immediate and permanent. Pattern break 3. Here is the number that should make every kitchen take this seriously. Britain throws away 9.5 million tons of food every year, according to UpRap. Households account for the largest share of that figure, not restaurants, not supermarkets. Households. The majority of household food waste falls into 3 categories: food spoiled before it was used, food cooked in excess of what was eaten, and food forgotten at the back of the fridge or freezer until it was no longer usable. Every single entry on this list addresses one of those three categories directly. The prep bowl from number 25 keeps the kitchen organized so nothing gets missed. The leftover box from number 19 makes near-finished food visible. The freezer list from number 25 stops food being forgotten. These are not complicated interventions. They are the habits that your grandmother maintained automatically, because in a kitchen where waste was genuinely unthinkable, these habits were simply how a kitchen was run. Number 10. Use kitchen scissors for herbs and bacon. A bunch of parsley over a bowl. 4 snips. Done. No board, no knife, no washing up beyond the scissors, which rinse clean in 10 seconds. Scissors are faster than a knife for soft herbs because you can gather the bunch, hold it over whatever it is going into, and cut directly without an intermediate surface. The same applies to spring onions snipped over a soup. Bacon rashers cut directly into a hot pan in strips rather than laid in whole and cut after cooking. Cooked chicken pulled apart with scissors rather than shredded with 2 forks. Tinned tomatoes snipped in the tin before they go into the pan so they break down faster. Kitchen scissors are the most underused tool in the British kitchen, consistently overlooked because the knife is considered the proper instrument. The knife is the proper instrument for precision work. For speed, for herbs, for anything going directly into a pan or a bowl, the scissors win every time. Number 9. Microwave onions first. A recipe begins with soften the onion. You dice it, put it in the pan with oil over medium heat, and stand there for 8 to 10 minutes, stirring regularly to make sure nothing catches. Or you put the diced onion in a small bowl, cover it loosely, and microwave it on full power for 3 minutes. The onion comes out fully softened, slightly translucent, and ready to go directly into the pan with your other ingredients without the standing and the stirring. The flavor development from slow pan softening is real and worth doing when you have time. When you do not, the microwaved onion gets you to the same point structurally in less than a third of the time. The microwave preserves more of the moisture inside the onion than pan cooking, which means it goes slightly softer rather than slightly caramelized. For soups, stews, sauces, and anything where the onion is one ingredient among many, the difference is imperceptible in the finished dish. Number 8. Use passata instead of chopping tomatoes. A tin of chopped tomatoes costs around 55 pence. A carton of passata costs around 70 pence. For the additional 15 pence, you get tomatoes that are already blended smooth, that will never produce the watery, uneven texture that chopped tomatoes can leave in a quick sauce, and that eliminate the need to blend or sieve anything after cooking. For pasta sauces, pizza bases, shakshuka, soups, and any dish where a smooth tomato base is the goal, passata is faster, more consistent, and produces a better result with less effort. The chopped tomatoes have their place in dishes where texture is wanted, in chili, in stews, in anything cooked long enough for the pieces to break down. But for a quick weeknight sauce where the tomato needs to be smooth and ready in 10 minutes, passata is not a shortcut, it is the correct ingredient. Your grandmother used whatever the tin contained without treating the choice as a compromise. Neither should you. Number 7. Roast extra vegetables. The oven is on. The tray is in. The cost of heating the oven to 200 degrees is the same whether one tray goes in or 3. This is the fundamental economics of batch roasting, and it is the reason your grandmother always roasted more than she needed for one meal. A second tray of mixed vegetables, courgette, pepper, red onion, carrot, cherry tomatoes takes the same effort to prepare as the first and costs around £1.50 in ingredients. What comes out of the oven goes into the fridge in a container. Over the next 3 days, it goes into a pasta on Monday, scattered over a salad with feta on Tuesday, stirred into a soup with stock on Wednesday. 3 separate meals that required almost no cooking beyond what was already happening. The marginal cost of those 3 meals is the £1.50 for the extra vegetables. The full cost of buying the equivalent ingredients fresh and preparing them separately on 3 different evenings is considerably more than that, in money, in time, and in washing up. Number 6. Pre-chop sofrito ingredients. Onion, carrot, and celery into equal quantities, diced fine. This combination is the foundation of more dishes than almost anything else in the British and European cooking tradition. Bolognese, stews, soups, risottos, pie fillings, braised meats. Every recipe that begins with "soften the vegetables for 10 minutes" is asking for this same base. Make a large batch on a Sunday. Dice everything together, combine in a bowl, and freeze flat in individual portions in small bags. Each bag drops frozen into a hot pan directly from the freezer. The vegetables soften as the pan heats. No defrosting, no chopping during the week, no crying over onions at 6 in the evening when energy is low and hunger is high. A portion of pre-chopped sofrito takes the most time-consuming part of a weeknight meal and moves it to the one moment in the week when there is time and willingness to do it properly. Sunday afternoon, everything chopped, everything ready. Every recipe that week starting 10 minutes faster. Number 5. Freeze lemon slices. A bag of lemons costs around £1 for 4 at most supermarkets. Used within the week, they are fine. Left until the following weekend, they are shriveling, the skin going dull, the juice yield dropping by the day. Before any of that happens, slice 2 of them into rounds, lay them on a lined tray, open freeze for 2 hours, and transfer to a bag in the freezer. Each frozen slice goes directly into a glass of water as ice and flavor simultaneously. Dropped into a pan of fish, squeezed from frozen over a finished plate, the juice running out as the slice thaws under pressure. The remaining 2 lemons stay on the counter for the week's immediate use. Nothing shrivels, nothing gets thrown away because it dried out before it was needed. A lemon that is in the freezer is a lemon that is always available, always fresh, and already paid for. Number 4. Put often used items at the front. Salt, olive oil, the everyday spices, tea, coffee. Whatever goes into a meal at least 4 times a week belongs within reach without opening anything, moving anything, or looking behind anything. A kitchen organized so that the most used items are least accessible wastes time in small increments every single day, and small increments of time add up across a year of cooking into something measurable. More practically, items stored out of sight tend to be forgotten and replaced. The salt that fell behind the flour gets missed during the weekly shop. A second box is bought. The original is found, and now there are 2. Neither is finished before the third appears. Your grandmother's kitchen was arranged around use frequency and nothing else. The things touched daily were closest to the stove. The things used monthly were at the back of the shelf. That logic costs nothing to apply in any kitchen and repays the 15 minutes of reorganization every single day thereafter. Number 3. Sharp knives only. A blunt knife is the most dangerous tool in the kitchen and the most common. A sharp knife cuts cleanly through a carrot with controlled forward pressure. A blunt knife skids off the curved surface, requires significantly more force, and when it finally cuts, it does so unpredictably. More pressure means less control. Less control means more accidents. This is not opinion. It is physics. A sharp knife also cuts faster, which means less time standing at the board, which means lower energy and higher willingness to cook from scratch rather than reach for something processed. A basic whetstone costs around £10 and takes 3 minutes per knife. A honing steel used for 30 seconds before each session maintains the edge between sharpenings. Professional kitchens sharpen daily. Home kitchens almost never sharpen at all and buy new knives when the old ones stop cutting, spending £30 or £40 to replace what 3 minutes of maintenance on a 10-pound stone would have prevented. Number 2. Use a pan lid to boil water faster. Cold water in an uncovered pan on a medium ring takes between 10 and 15 minutes to reach a rolling boil. The same amount of water in a covered pan with the kettle poured in already hot takes under 3 minutes. These are not marginal differences, they are the difference between starting to cook immediately and standing in front of a hob for 12 minutes waiting for physics. Boil the kettle first, pour it into the pan, cover the pan. The water is boiling before the kettle has finished its cycle. The lid traps heat and steam. Every degree of energy that would have escaped into the kitchen air stays inside the pan and drives the temperature up faster. A watched pot never boils, as the saying goes. A covered pot with already hot water in it boils before you have had time to finish watching it. Your grandmother had that kettle going before she decided what was for tea. She was not sentimental about it. She was efficient. Number 1. Keep a prep bowl on the counter. This is the simplest trick on the entire list and the one that changes the experience of cooking more immediately than any other. A large bowl placed on the counter before any preparation begins. Every peeling, every wrapper, every scrap, every trimming goes directly into it throughout the whole cooking session. At the end, the bowl goes to the compost or the bin in one movement. The counter stays clear throughout. The sink stays empty. The cooking surface remains workable. The scraps from the prep bowl that have value go into the freezer bag from number 20 for stock. Without the bowl, peelings accumulate across the board and the counter. The sink fills. The workspace shrinks. The cooking becomes progressively more chaotic, and the cleanup at the end takes 3 times longer than if everything had been in one place from the start. Your grandmother had a specific bowl for peelings on her preparation table. It was not a lifestyle choice. It was the obvious thing. The obvious thing is still the obvious thing. Share in the comments which one you are going to make. If this was useful for you, hit subscribe. These meals are still here. They have been waiting. Now you know where to find them.